Have you ever noticed that your relationships always seem to end the same way? Different partners, different faces, different names. But in the end, the same pain, the same disappointment, the same pattern repeating like a broken record stuck on replay. It leaves you wondering, what's wrong with me? Why do I always attract the same type of person? Why do I always end up in the same situation? Today, I'm going to reveal something that Carl Jung discovered about the human unconscious, something that explains why you repeat the same toxic patterns in every relationship, and more importantly, how to break that cycle once and for all. This isn't bad luck. It's not a coincidence. It's not the fault of the universe. It's a precise psychological mechanism that's operating beneath your consciousness. And until you understand how it works, you'll keep repeating the same mistakes, choosing the same toxic partners, reliving the same pains. Carl Jung said something that changed the way I see relationships forever. He said that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And did you hear that? You think you're choosing your partners, you think you're in control, but your unconscious is making the choices for you. And you call it fate, bad luck in love. But it's none of that. It's programming. It's a pattern created in your childhood that your brain continues to run automatically. And today, you're going to discover exactly what that pattern is and why it keeps you trapped in relationships that hurt you. If you've ever ended a relationship and sworn you'd never get involved with someone like that again, and then found yourself in the exact same situation with another person, this video is for you. If you look back and see a trail of relationships that seem like copies of each other, this video is for you. If you feel like there's something wrong with you because your relationships never work out, this video will change everything. Stick around until the end, because I'm going to give you the exact signs that you're repeating a toxic pattern from childhood. And more importantly, I'll show you the way to break this cycle. Let's start at the beginning. Where does this pattern even come from? Carl Jung discovered that childhood wounds create what he called complexes. Then these are emotionally charged groupings of thoughts and feelings that can be activated in present situations. These complexes often form the core of our self-sabotaging patterns. Let me translate that. When you were a child, you had experiences with your parents or caregivers that left marks. Some of these marks were positive, but others were wounds, rejection, abandonment, conditional love, emotional neglect, constant criticism, impossible expectations. These wounds didn't disappear when you grew up. They were pushed into the unconscious, and there, they transformed into complexes, into automatic reaction patterns, into programming that directs your choices without you realizing it. And here's the most disturbing part. Carl Jung observed a tendency to unconsciously recreate unresolved emotional situations, sometimes choosing partners who allow us to re-experience old wounds or dynamics in an attempt to finally understand or master those situations. Are you hearing me? Your unconscious is leading you back to the same wound, again and again with different faces, but the same pain. This is called repetition compulsion, and it's not conscious. You don't wake up in the morning and decide, today, I'm going to choose a partner who will treat me exactly like my father treated me. It doesn't work like that. It's automatic, it's invisible, and it's devastating. Let me give you an example. A woman grew up with an emotionally unavailable father. He was there physically, but never present emotionally. Never asked how she was doing, never showed affection, never validated her feelings. She grew up and started dating, and guess what kind of man she chose? Emotionally unavailable, present physically but absent emotionally. Incapable of showing affection or validating her feelings. She ended that relationship, swore never again. And the next one? The same type. And the one after that? The same. And she wondered, why do I always attract men like this? Let me give you another example. A woman grew up with a critical mother. Nothing she did was good enough. Her grades were never high enough. Her body was never thin enough. Her friends were never good enough. She grew up feeling like she was fundamentally flawed. And guess what kind of partner she chose? Someone critical. someone who pointed out her flaws, someone who made her feel like she was never good enough, exactly like her mother. She didn't choose it consciously. She didn't wake up thinking, "I'm going to find someone who criticizes me." But that dynamic was familiar. It felt normal. It felt like what she deserved. But the right question isn't why you attract. The right question is why you choose, why you feel attracted, why that type of person seems familiar, seems right, even when it's completely wrong for you. Carl Jung had the answer. He said that our unconscious comfort zone, familiarized with disapproval, continues to direct us toward people and environments that replicate our earliest relationships. That's powerful. Your comfort zone isn't made of things that are good for you. It's made of things that are familiar. And what's familiar? The pattern of your parents, the dynamic of your childhood, the wound you carry, as in here's what's the most cruel. You call it chemistry, attraction, butterflies in your stomach. But often, it's not chemistry. It's trauma activation. Your nervous system recognizes the danger and confuses it with excitement, confuses anxiety with passion, confuses fear of abandonment with intense love. You know, that feeling that you've known the person your entire life, even though you just met. Often it's not a soul connection. It's your unconscious recognizing a familiar pattern, recognizing someone who's going to treat you like your parents treated you. So, when you find someone who treats you like your parents treated you, something inside you recognizes it. Something says, I know this. This feels right. And you confuse familiarity with love, confuse recognition with connection, confuse the wound with home. But why? Why would the unconscious do this? Why would it lead you back to the pain? Carl Jung's answer is surprising. He discovered that the repetition compulsion leads people to unconsciously recreate early trauma dynamics, hoping to resolve them in adult relationships. But instead of resolving them, they end up hurting themselves again. Your unconscious is trying to heal you. It's leading you back to the wound because it wants you to finally resolve it. Have you ever wished you could write a different ending to your story? A yearn to receive the kind of love you missed out on as a child. But it doesn't quite work that way, because you're often unaware of what you're doing. You don't realize you're replaying an old, familiar pattern. You might think it's love, or destiny, or a profound soul connection. And so, you subconsciously choose the same type of partner, and the pattern repeats itself. The wound goes deeper, and the cycle continues. Carl Jung wisely pointed out that love, in this distorted form, often becomes an external quest for a savior or a soulmate, instead of an internal process of self-healing and self-restoration. You're desperately searching for something in others that you should be cultivating within yourself. You're essentially asking a romantic partner to heal wounds that only you can address. You're hoping that someone's love will finally fill the gaping hole that your parents' lack of love created. But no partner can truly do that for you. No romantic relationship can ever give you what you fundamentally didn't receive in your childhood, because that wound, that deep-seated hurt, it is yours alone to heal. Now let's delve into some of the specific patterns that childhood experiences often create. The first pattern is a constant, nagging need for approval. If you grew up with parents who only showed you love and affection, when you behaved in a certain way, you learned that love is conditional, that you have to do something to earn affection, that you need to be a certain way to even be considered lovable. And now in your adult relationships, you're constantly seeking that same validation. You need your partner to validate you, to reassure you, all the time. You may find yourself subtly or not so subtly changing who you are just to please them. You consistently abandon your own needs just to cater to theirs, because deep down, you still believe you have to earn love. The second pattern is a strange, almost magnetic attraction to emotionally unavailable people. If you grew up with a parent who was emotionally distant, cold, or simply absent, you inadvertently learned that love means pursuing. It means constantly trying to reach someone who's always just a little bit out of your grasp. It means working incredibly hard for even the tiniest scraps of attention. And now, as an adult, you find yourself almost inexplicably drawn to people who aren't fully available. people who are already committed to someone else, people who are emotionally closed off and guarded, people who give you attention only intermittently, in fits and starts, because on some deeply unconscious level, that feels familiar, that feels like love. The third pattern is the heartbreaking tendency to accept abusive or mistreating behavior. If you were raised in an environment where yelling, constant criticism, or even physical violence were considered normal, you may have internalized the twisted belief that this is simply part of love, that all relationships have extreme highs and lows, that after the storm always comes the calm, and now. You may find yourself tolerating behaviors that you really shouldn't be tolerating. You forgive the unforgivable. You justify the unjustifiable, because deep down, you don't actually know what a truly healthy, supportive relationship looks like. You only know the patterns you learned in your childhood home. The fourth pattern is a crippling, pervasive fear of abandonment. If you experienced actual or emotional abandonment as a child, you likely grew up with a very deep and persistent fear of being left alone, and that fear, often subconscious, can control your relationships. You cling desperately to partners who aren't actually good for you. You accept anything just to avoid being alone. You might even subtly sabotage otherwise good relationships because you're so terrified that they're going to leave you first. The fifth pattern is choosing partners who you believe you can save. If you grew up in a chaotic household where you often had to take care of your parents or siblings, you learned that your value comes from taking care of others. And now, as an adult, you consistently choose partners with problems. People who need to be fixed, people who are seemingly dependent on you. Because caring for others makes you feel useful. It makes you feel needed. It makes you feel like you finally have some inherent worth. But deep down, you're simply avoiding taking care of yourself. You're avoiding confronting your own deep-seated wounds and insecurities. Did any of these patterns resonate with you? The truth is, most people can identify with more than one, because childhood creates multiple wounds. And those wounds, when left unaddressed, combine to create a unique pattern of self-sabotage in your adult relationships. But here's the good news. Carl Jung also uncovered the pathway to healing. He asserted that we cannot heal that which we do not acknowledge or recognize. By bringing conscious awareness to those old childhood wounds and understanding precisely how they've shaped us, we can begin to integrate them, freeing ourselves from their unconscious control and fostering genuine inner peace and lasting emotional maturity. The very first step is simple. Recognize the pattern. See it for what it is. Admit that it exists. Stop blaming fate, bad luck, or other people, and take responsibility for what you are creating in your life. This doesn't mean blaming yourself. It simply means becoming consciously aware. It means shining a light on what was previously hidden in darkness. It means making the unconscious conscious. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." This journey, often referred to as individuation, inherently involves integrating unconscious aspects, including the shadow, into conscious awareness. The shadow. This is another crucial discovery of Jung's. The shadow is the part of yourself that you actively reject, that you carefully hide, that you don't want to see, and very often. The shadow contains the unhealed wounds from your childhood that you've never wanted to face. Therefore, to break the toxic pattern, you must confront your shadow. You have to be willing to look directly at the parts of yourself that you'd much rather ignore. You must accept the wounded child that still lives within you. And yes, this can be terrifying, because the shadow often contains significant pain, deep-seated shame, and memories that you'd much rather forget. But Jung maintained that until you confront that shadow, it will continue to exert an often unconscious and detrimental control over your life. Let me explain to you how the pattern generally forms. When you were a small child, you needed the love and attention of your parents to survive, quite literally. A child without care and protection will die. So, Your developing brain devised strategies to guarantee that care, to ensure that you would be loved, or at least cared for. If your parents only gave you attention when you were perfectly obedient, you quickly learned to be obedient. If they only demonstrated affection when you performed well at school or in extracurricular activities, you learned to perform. If they essentially ignored you unless you were in some sort of crisis, you learned to create crises. These strategies were absolutely necessary in your childhood. They were adaptive. They kept you alive and relatively safe. The problem is that your brain unfortunately doesn't automatically know when to stop. It continues using the exact same strategies in your adult life, long after they're no longer necessary, even when they actively harm you. And this is precisely why you keep repeating the pattern in your relationships, because those childhood survival strategies have now become your default mode of relating to others. Your brain still thinks it's in danger, still thinks it needs to guarantee love and safety through those very same, often self-destructive, behaviors. Jung termed these the childhood wounds that are pushed deep into the personal unconscious. They don't simply disappear. Instead, they can accumulate pressure over time. If left unattended, these repressed emotions become powerful forces that can subtly disrupt our mental equilibrium and shape our reactions to the world. Can you see how this works? The wound itself doesn't vanish. It remains there, building up energy. And that energy, at some point, needs to find an outlet. So, it inevitably comes out through your relationships, through your choices, through your life. It's through those patterns that you repeat without even understanding why. Now, let me show you the signs that you're repeating a toxic pattern from childhood in your current relationship. The first sign is that the fights seem disproportionate. You argue over small things, but the emotional intensity is enormous. You feel anger, pain, despair that seem much bigger than the situation warrants. This happens because it's not just about the current situation, it's about all the times you felt the same thing in childhood. The old wound is being activated, reawakened. The second sign is that you feel like you're walking on eggshells. You have a constant fear of doing something wrong, of disappointing someone, of being abandoned. You constantly monitor your partner's mood. You adjust your behavior to avoid conflict. This is exactly what you did in childhood to guarantee the love of your parents or caregivers. The third sign is that you feel responsible for your partner's emotions. If they're sad, you think it's your fault. If they're angry, you need to fix it. You carry the emotional weight of the relationship alone. This comes from a childhood where you learned that you needed to manage your parents' emotions to keep the peace, to keep the household from exploding. The fourth sign is that you lose your identity in the relationship. You no longer know who you are outside of the relationship. Your tastes, opinions, desires merge with those of your partner. You cease to exist as an individual. This happens because in childhood you learned that having your own identity was dangerous, that being yourself meant losing love or attention. The fifth sign is that you alternate between emotional extremes. One day you love intensely. The next, you want to end it. You idealize your partner and then devalue them completely. These extremes reflect the emotional instability that you experienced in childhood. You internalize that love is chaotic, that relationships are roller coasters, a wild ride. The sixth sign is that you can't stand being alone. The idea of being without a relationship terrifies you. You jump from one relationship to another. You endure intolerable situations just to avoid being alone. This fear comes from the abandonment that you experienced, or feared, in childhood. That deep-seated fear of being left behind. The seventh sign is that you always choose the same type of person. Look back. Look at the history of your relationships. You'll see a pattern. Maybe they were all emotionally unavailable. Maybe they were all controlling. Maybe they all needed to be saved. The specific type doesn't matter. What matters is that there is a type. And that type is connected to your childhood, to those early experiences that shaped you. Now comes the most important part. How to break this pattern. Carl Jung showed that true love emerges not as a need to complete ourselves through others, but as a profound acceptance of ourselves. As we recover the denied parts of the self, love changes from projection and possession to acceptance and freedom, to a place of unconditional understanding. That's the key. You need to stop looking for what's missing in you in others. You need to stop projecting your wounds onto your partners. You need to stop expecting someone else's love to cure what only you can cure. The first step is to become aware of the pattern. Write, document your past relationships. What did they have in common? How did you feel in them? How did they end? What did you always seek? What did you always avoid? This exercise will reveal the pattern that you repeat, the underlying theme. The second step is to connect the pattern to your childhood. After identifying the pattern, ask, where did I learn this? From which of my parents? In what situation in my childhood? You'll find the origin at the root, the moment the wound was created, the core belief that was formed. The third step is to grieve what you didn't receive. This is difficult. It means accepting that your parents didn't give you what you needed. It means stopping justifying, minimizing, or denying what happened. It means allowing the sadness, allowing the anger, allowing the grief. Feel it fully, because you can't heal what you don't recognize, and you can't move forward without leaving the past behind. The fourth step is to give yourself what you didn't receive. If you didn't receive validation, learn to validate yourself. If you didn't receive unconditional love, learn to love yourself unconditionally. If you didn't receive security, create internal security. Become for yourself the parent you needed. The guiding force, the safe harbor. This is what Carl Jung called individuation. It's the process of becoming whole, of integrating the fragmented parts of yourself, of ceasing to depend on others to feel complete, to feel worthy. The fifth step is to choose differently. When you meet someone who activates that familiar feeling of home, pause, because it's probably not love. It's the pattern being activated. It's your wound recognizing a compatible wound in the other, a twisted sort of connection. Choose someone who treats you well, even if it seems strange at first, even if it doesn't have that intensity, even if it doesn't seem so exciting. Because healthy relationships aren't roller coasters. They are calm rivers that take you to a better place, a place of peace and growth. The sixth step is to go to therapy. I know not everyone can afford therapy, but if you can, do it. Especially therapy that works with childhood traumas, because some wounds are too deep to heal alone. And there's no shame in asking for help. It's a sign of strength. Carl Jung was a therapist. He developed all this knowledge working with people who were trapped in patterns they couldn't break on their own. Therapy exists for this, to help you see what you can't see alone, to shine a light on the blind spots. You've just learned something that can completely change your love life. Most people spend their lives repeating the same patterns without ever understanding why. Now you know. Do you know the cruelest truth about this pattern? It convinces you that you are the problem, that you don't deserve love, that there's something fundamentally wrong with you, that you're unlucky in love, that you're cursed. But it's not true. You're not the problem. The pattern is the problem. The wound is the problem. The unconscious programming is the problem. The limiting beliefs that have been holding you back. And programs can be changed. Wounds can be healed. Patterns can be broken. When you support this channel, you're funding more revelations like this, more truths that liberate, more knowledge that transforms, more empowering content. The golden heart of Super Thanks is right below. Every contribution helps bring more content like this to more people who need to hear it. Click on the heart. Support the transformation. Invest in yourself. Now let me give you signs that you're starting to break the pattern. The first sign is that you start to notice the pattern while it's happening. Before, you only noticed it afterward, after the relationship had already destroyed part of you. Now you notice it in the moment. You feel the attraction to the wrong type of person and recognize this is the pattern. It's not love, it's familiarity. It's a comfortable kind of chaos. The second sign? Healthy people start to look attractive. Before, emotionally available people seemed boring, bland, no chemistry. Now, you start to see the beauty in stability, in consistency, in genuine presence. Your definition of attractive shifts. The third sign is that you can be alone without desperation. Before, being alone was unbearable. Now, you can be with yourself. You can enjoy your own company. You can wait for the right partner instead of latching onto the first one who comes along. The fourth sign is that your relationships become less intense and more profound. Before, you confused intensity with passion, drama with love, a roller coaster with connection. Now you seek depth, consistency, mutual growth, and that feels better than any intensity ever could. The fifth sign is that you stop trying to fix your partner. Before, you chose broken people and tried to fix them. Now you understand that everyone is responsible for their own healing. You can support them, but you can't save them, and you stop getting involved with rescue projects. You're not a therapist, you're a partner. The sixth sign is that you can have healthy boundaries. Before, your boundaries were non-existent or extreme. You either accepted everything or rejected everything. Now you can say no with love. You can protect your space without destroying the connection. You can be firm without being rigid. The seventh sign is that the inner critical voice starts to quiet down. That voice that told you that you weren't good enough, that you didn't deserve love, that you were flawed, starts to get quieter. And a new voice emerges, a voice of compassion, of acceptance, of self-love. In the comments, tell me, what pattern from your parents do you repeat in your relationships? Be brutally honest. Honesty is the first step toward healing. Let me give you a final truth that Jung taught us. He said that what you resist persists. As long as you run from the pattern, it will chase you. As long as you deny the wound, it will bleed. As long as you avoid the unconscious, it will control your life. But the moment you stop running, something changes. The moment you look directly at the pattern, it loses power. The moment you embrace the wound, it begins to heal. This doesn't happen overnight. It's not an instant transformation. It's a process, sometimes painful, sometimes slow, but always transformative. And you deserve that transformation. You deserve relationships that nurture you instead of destroying you. You deserve partners who truly love you, not partners who make you relive your childhood. You didn't come into this world to repeat the mistakes of your parents. You came to break the cycle, to heal the wound, to become the person your parents couldn't be. And it starts today. It starts with the awareness you just gained. It starts with the choice to look inward instead of searching outward. Jung dedicated his entire life to studying the unconscious because he knew that's where the key to liberation lay. He knew that we repeat until we understand, and we repeat until we heal, and we repeat until we finally wake up. You're waking up now. This video is part of that awakening. This awareness is the first step to freedom. In the previous video, I showed you the exact moment you started to hate your own face. And in the next one, I'm going to reveal how your childhood programmed you to attract narcissistic partners specifically. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss it. You aren't trapped. You never were. What held you captive was unconsciousness. And now that you know, you can choose differently. Choose yourself first. Heal the wound within you. And then, from that healing, build relationships based on true love, not on trauma repetition. You deserve this. And now you know how to get there. Jung said that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. May your next relationships be transformative in a positive sense. May they lift you up, not drag you down. May they heal you, not wound you. May they complete you in the sense of supporting you to become who you really are. Not in the sense of filling a void, because you're already whole. You just need to remember that. And the first step to remembering is to stop repeating. And stopping repeating starts with understanding. And now, you understand. Go ahead. Break the cycle. You can do it.